You wake up choking on smoke that isn't rising cleanly. It is crawling, low and thick, like something alive that has decided to sit on your face. Your eyes snap open into darkness that isn't just night, it's the inside of a house that has swallowed its own air. The thatch above you gives off a faint, sour heat, and you smell something sharp under the peat smoke. Wet straw warming too fast, the hint of old wood beginning to scorch. The wind outside hits the wall hard enough to make the whole place shudder. You don't hear the wind the way you usually do, a steady moan at the roofline. This is a battering. Each gust lands like a fist. Somewhere in the room, something creaks and then pops. Timber flexing, a peg slipping, the bones of the house complaining. You sit up too quickly and the cold punches your lungs. Your breath feels like it's been replaced with needles. You reach for the edge of your blanket, wool so rough it has rubbed your skin raw for weeks, and your fingers find damp. Everything is damp. Your bedding, your hair, the very air. Moisture has been trapped in here, warmed by bodies, then cooled again, until the thatch and rafters sweat it back down. You taste it as you inhale, smoke and wetness and the stale sourness of people living too close together. The fire in the center of the floor is not a flame right now. It is a dull orange wound under gray ash. It should be stronger. It should be feeding. It should be giving you just enough heat to keep your hands from turning useless. Instead, it is dying, and you know what happens if it dies tonight. You crawl toward it, half on your knees because the smoke is worse higher up, half because your legs are slow from cold and lack of food. Your stomach cramps as you move. Hunger and cold are working together now. Hunger makes you weaker. Weakness makes you colder. Cold makes you burn calories faster, and you have nothing left to burn. Your fingers dig into the ash, searching for a coal. You feel one, a tiny hard pebble of heat, and it stings you through the grime. You pull it free and cup it, and the pain is sharp enough to wake your whole body. That coal is life, but it is also a warning. There are not many left. The wind hits again. The door, just planks and a bar, rattles as if someone is trying to break in. A gap you didn't notice before opens near the threshold, and the cold air spills inside like water. You feel it slide across the floor, sweeping the smoke and ash in a wave, and the tiny orange wound in the hearth shrinks. For 1 second, you imagine the fire going out completely. The room goes colder by degrees you can't count. Everyone's breathing turns into thin, frantic gasps. Hands go numb, then feet, then faces. The old man in the corner, weak from fever for days, stops moving. The baby that has been whimpering in the dark goes quiet in a way that doesn't sound like sleep. You imagine trying to start a new flame with wet tinder and shaking hands while the storm keeps dumping snow and freezing rain onto the roof, while the wind finds every crack and turns them into knives. You imagine stepping outside to look for more fuel and getting lost in the white even 10 steps from your own door because the path is gone. You don't let the thought finish. You bury it, the way people bury dead things when the ground is too hard, quickly and without ceremony. You push your face closer to the ash and blow, slow and steady. Your lungs hate it. Smoke pulls at your throat and makes you gag, but you keep blowing. A thin red line appears, then another. The coal catches barely, and the ash lifts in a faint glow like embers under skin. You feed it a pinch of something dry, twisted straw that has been kept tucked under bedding, saved like treasure. It hisses, then takes, and a thread of flame shows itself, weak and desperate. The roof groans again. For a terrifying moment, you think the thatch is going to lift. If it lifts, the snow will pour in and bury you alive. If it collapses, it will crush you and smother the fire, and you will die in the dark with smoke in your lungs. You keep feeding the flame anyway. You have no other job in this moment but to keep the fire alive. Fire is the line between you and a winter that is trying to erase you. And then, like a hand pulling you backward, you remember that this is not the beginning. This is the middle, the part where the cold has already won ground. You remember what it felt like before the storm turned your house into a trap and the village into an island of starving people. You remember the first real cold, when it was still a warning and not a weapon.
Welcome to the simulation. You are here to live a winter the way medieval peasants lived it, without electricity, without central heat, without anything that makes modern cold feel temporary. If you want to survive more nights like this, more history that doesn't care about comfort, subscribe now. It helps you keep going, and it helps this channel keep building these worlds. Now, breathe slow. Keep your eyes low. The smoke is always there, and we're going back to the start. You are not a knight, not a priest, not anyone with a stone hall and servants and stores of seasoned oak stacked under cover. You are a person who works with your hands until they crack, who eats when there is food and waits when there isn't. You live in a small village where the houses crouch low against the wind. Your home is timber and wattle, the gaps packed with clay and straw, patched every year because it always breaks somewhere. The roof is thatch, thick enough to shed rain when it is new, thin enough to leak when it is old. There is no chimney. Smoke leaves the house the way water leaves a cracked bucket, through gaps, through the doorway, through the thatch itself. That means the air inside is never clean. It means your eyes sting half the year. It means your lungs carry a lifetime of soot. In late autumn, before the first real storms, the days still have light that feels almost normal. The sun sits lower and the shadows stretch longer across the fields, but you can still work without your fingers turning stiff. You smell earth most of the time, wet soil, rotting leaves, animal dung spread on fields. The village is always full of that smell. It is not optional, it is how you live. A thin layer of manure clings to boots, to hems, to the floor. You step over it, smear it, track it. It is fertilizer and filth at once. Inside your house, the smell changes but never improves. It is smoke, sour milk, damp wool, human sweat, and the sharp ammonia of urine soaked into straw. The floor is beaten earth. It holds moisture. It holds spilled broth. It holds whatever falls from your hands when you're too tired to pick it up. In the corners, the walls sweat in cold weather. The clay that fills the wattle goes dark with damp. The whole place feels like it is slowly dissolving, but it is still your shelter. You know every weak spot. You know where the wind sneaks in. You know which section of wall you have to slap more clay onto before winter really settles.
As the season turns, you begin the work of preparing for cold the way you prepare for hunger, by trying to stay ahead of it while you still can. You gather fuel the way you gather food, anything you can carry, anything that burns, anything that buys you another hour of heat. If you have access to wood, it is not the clean, dry kind. It is sticks, branches, split pieces taken from hedges, from deadfall, from whatever you are allowed to collect. Much of it is green, much of it is damp. When you burn it, it smokes thick and bitter, and it doesn't give much heat, but you burn it anyway, because smoke is better than freezing. You also collect peat or turf if your land gives it, dark, dense blocks cut from wet ground and stacked to dry. Peat burns slow and steady when it is dry enough, but dry enough is a gamble in a wet climate. You stack it under whatever cover you can manage. You feel the anxiety of it every time you look at the pile. You count it without meaning to. This many blocks might last this many nights if the cold stays mild. If it doesn't, you will start breaking up things you need. Old baskets, broken tools, anything wooden, just to keep the hearth alive. Clothing becomes a system, not a choice. Linen next to skin if you have it, because it absorbs sweat. Wool over that because wool keeps some warmth even when damp, and everything is damp. You patch the same garments over and over. Your sleeves are mended at the elbows. Your knees are thick with stitches. The cloth is rough and itches. You scratch until your skin breaks. Those small cuts become painful in winter because they never heal cleanly. The cold keeps them open. Dirt gets into them. You learn to ignore it. You sleep in layers because the night steals heat faster than the day. You share bedding. There is no privacy in winter. Bodies are heat sources. You press in close because the air in the room is colder than the air trapped between people. The wool blankets are heavy and smell of sheep and smoke. When you pull them over yourself, you inhale that smell and it sits at the back of your throat. It is familiar. It is safety in a crude form. Animals are part of the warmth too, whether you like it or not. If you have a cow or a goat, it is not just wealth, it is a breathing furnace. In deep winter, livestock often ends up closer to the living space, sometimes in an attached byre, sometimes under the same roof separated by a low barrier, sometimes simply brought in when the weather turns brutal. Their bodies give off heat, their breath adds moisture, their dung adds stink. Their presence adds risk, disease, parasites, filth, but the alternative is worse. In winter, you accept risk in exchange for warmth. The hearth is the center of it all. It is not a neat fireplace with a grate. It is a patch of ground in the middle of the room, ringed with stones if you have them, stained black from years of burning. The soot rises and hangs in the rafters, turning the beams into dark, greasy wood. In a strange way, that soot is protective. It discourages insects. It helps preserve the timber. Your house is smoked like meat year after year, and you live inside the cure. When autumn is ending, the cold comes in stages. The first stage is manageable. You wake to frost on the ground and feel it crunch underfoot. Your breath shows in the morning. You rub your hands together and blow into them, and you can still feel your fingers afterward. You keep moving, and you stay warm enough. You tell yourself this is nothing. You've seen frost before. You have survived it. The second stage is when the damp cold arrives, when it stops being about temperature and starts being about wetness. Rain turns to sleet, then back to rain. The sky stays low and gray for days. Everything you touch feels clammy. Your clothes never fully dry. Your bedding takes on the smell of cold wool that has been warmed by bodies and cooled again. That smell is hard to describe, but you know it the way you know your own fatigue. It is the smell of winter beginning to settle in. You notice the village changing, not dramatically, but in small signs. Fewer people linger outside. Work becomes faster, more urgent, done in shorter bursts between cold spells. Smoke rises from every roof and hangs over the roofs like a dirty blanket. The air smells of burning, not the pleasant burn of dry logs, but the acrid burn of damp fuel fighting to stay lit. Your eyes water more, your throat stays sore, the cough that everyone has becomes louder. Food becomes heavier and more repetitive. You eat what stores you have: grain, beans, salted meat if you're lucky, cheese if it lasts. Meals are meant to give heat from the inside, but they also run out. Every bowl is measured against the weeks ahead. You swallow and feel the warmth spread briefly through your stomach, then fade. You learn that eating is not the same as being fed. At night, you lie down and listen to the house. In summer, you sleep with the sense that the world outside is wide and alive. In late autumn, the world outside narrows. You hear wind in the thatch. You hear a distant dog bark, and then nothing. You hear the soft shifting of people in the dark. You hear the occasional squeal of a rat in the wall. You feel the cold creeping up from the earth floor, sliding under bedding, finding the parts of you that are exposed. You tuck your feet deeper in. You pull the blanket tighter. You think about your fuel pile without wanting to. The sense of impending doom isn't dramatic. It isn't a thunderclap. It is a slow pressure. You see it in the way older people move more carefully, conserving energy. You see it in the way mothers check children's hands and ears, making sure they are still warm. You see it in the way everyone keeps looking at the sky, not for beauty, but for signs. The wrong kind of cloud, the wrong wind, the kind of damp that means snow will come heavy. You do what you can. You stuff rags into cracks. You smear more clay along the wattle. You bring in extra straw. You set aside anything that can burn. You keep your best wool dry as long as possible. You try to sleep while you still can, because deep winter does not give real rest.
It gives shallow naps, interrupted by the need to tend the fire, to shift closer, to check on the weak. And then the day comes when the cold stops negotiating. It starts with the sky turning the color of dirty wool. The air goes still in a way that makes you uneasy, because stillness in winter is never calm. It is a pause before something hits. You smell snow before you see it, an odd, clean sharpness under the usual stink of smoke and animals. The temperature drops quickly, not by a gentle slope, but like a door being shut. Your fingers go numb faster, your breath becomes harsher. By afternoon, flakes begin to fall, light at first, almost harmless. They melt on your sleeves. You keep working anyway, because work does not stop just because the weather changes. You haul, you carry, you fetch, you cut. Your back aches. The thin layer of warmth you build with movement is stolen each time you pause. The wind comes with the snow. It threads through the village, finding alleys between houses, punching into yards, lifting loose straw and spinning it. The snow turns sideways, it gets in your eyes, it sticks to your lashes, it begins to collect in corners and against walls. You feel the first true fear then, not panic, but the recognition that the storm has weight. It is not passing through, it is settling in. You go inside earlier than usual because the light is gone. Inside the house, the hearth feels weak against the new cold. The smoke is thicker because the fuel is damp. The walls already feel colder to the touch. You sit close to the fire and you feel the heat on your shins, but your back is cold. You turn and warm your back, and then your front goes cold again. You chase warmth around your own body like a dog chasing a scrap. You eat something small and you tell yourself it will be enough. You listen to the wind rise. It finds the roofline and starts to worry at it. Thatched roofs are good at shedding rain, but wind can pry at them, pull out handfuls of straw, create gaps that let wet snow in. You imagine those gaps forming while you sit helpless inside. You imagine the water soaking down into the thatch, freezing, making it heavier. You imagine the roof sagging. You imagine waking in the night to a collapse. You try to sleep anyway because you have to. You lie down with others, close, tight, breathing the same air. You pull the blanket over your head for warmth, then pull it off again because the smoke makes you cough. Your throat burns, your eyes sting, your skin is grimy with soot and sweat. You are exhausted in a way that feels older than you are. Outside, the storm keeps building. And somewhere ahead, in the middle of that building storm, is the moment you woke choking in smoke, crawling through ash, trying to keep a dying coal alive while the house threatened to come apart around you. For now, you are still at the edge of it. The first night is beginning. The cold is stepping closer. The village is holding its breath. You don't know yet how long the storm will last, how quickly the fuel will disappear, how hunger will sharpen, how fear will turn your own mind against you. But you can already feel the truth in your bones. Warmth is not comfort. Warmth is survival. And winter has started counting you. You wake before dawn because the fire needs you, not because you are rested. Rest is something you remember from warmer seasons, when sleep came deep and uninterrupted. Now sleep is thin, torn into pieces by cold, by hunger, by the constant low fear that something essential will fail while you are unconscious. Your eyes open into darkness that is already familiar. You know the shape of the room without seeing it. You know where the hearth sits by the faint red glow buried under ash. You know where bodies are pressed together, where limbs overlap, where breath fogs the air in slow rhythm. The first thing you feel is the cold on your face. Your nose is numb. Your cheeks feel stiff, as if the skin has been stretched too tight. You pull your hand from beneath the blanket and it hurts immediately, the air biting into your fingers. You flex them slowly, waiting for sensation to come back, knowing that if you move too fast, the pain will be worse. Cold teaches patience whether you want it or not. You push yourself upright, careful not to disturb the others more than necessary. Movement means heat loss, and heat is shared now. When one person shifts, everyone feels it. You crawl toward the hearth again, staying low, because the smoke is heavier higher up. It always is. There is no chimney to carry it away. Smoke is part of the house. It clings to the rafters, stains the thatch, coats your lungs. You have lived with it long enough that you barely notice until your eyes water or your chest tightens. You dig into the ash and find what you hoped would still be there, a few surviving coals, glowing faintly like buried embers in a wound that never heals. You feed them carefully. Everything about fire is careful now. You do not throw fuel on it, you place it. You break it smaller than you want to. You think in hours instead of moments. This piece might last until mid-morning if the wind doesn't shift. That piece might be saved for nightfall when the cold is sharpest and sleep is hardest. This is how your world has reorganized itself. Everything bends toward the hearth. Time bends, space bends, your body bends. When the flame strengthens, even slightly, you feel it immediately, not as comfort, but as relief. The air near the floor warms just enough that your fingers stop aching. The skin on your face loosens. You hold your hands out, palms toward the heat, then turn them, warming the backs, knowing that uneven warming can crack skin just as easily as cold. You have learned these small lessons over years. Winter is a teacher that repeats itself until you listen. As the fire steadies, the room begins to wake. Someone coughs, deep and wet. Someone else shifts and exhales sharply as cold air hits exposed skin. A child whimpers, then quiets as a body presses closer. No one speaks. Speech wastes energy. Words are saved for when they matter, and right now, survival is handled with movement and habit. You are learning that warmth is not something you feel all at once. It is something you assemble. It comes from many small sources layered together: fire, bodies, walls, animals, clothing, timing. Miss one and the whole structure weakens. The house itself is part of that structure. In daylight, when you can see it properly, it looks fragile. Thin walls woven of sticks and packed with clay. A roof of straw that relies on thickness and angle rather than strength. Gaps that reappear no matter how often you fill them. But you know its strengths too. Low ceilings trap what heat you make. The smoke-darkened thatch sheds water better than new straw would. The soot on the beams discourages rot and insects. This house has survived winters before. That knowledge matters. It is a thin reassurance, but you take it. You spend part of the morning tending to the defenses against cold. This is work that never ends. You press more clay into cracks where the wind has found its way in. Your fingers grow stiff as you work the cold mud. It smells of earth and rot. You pack it tight anyway, smoothing it with numb hands, knowing it will crack again when it dries, knowing you will be back here in a day or two doing it again. You hang damp clothing as close to the hearth as you dare. Too close and it could catch. Too far and it will never dry. The balance is delicate. Steam rises faintly from wool and linen, adding more moisture to the air. The room smells stronger now. Wet fabric, smoke, human bodies. It is not pleasant, but it is life. Dry clothing is warmth. Damp clothing steals heat faster than naked skin. Animals shift in their corner. You hear the soft stomp of a hoof, the low sound of breath from a larger body. Their presence changes the air. It becomes warmer, heavier. You are aware of the trade you have made. They bring heat, but they also bring filth. Straw on the floor absorbs dung and urine until it must be replaced, and replacing it costs effort and resources. In winter, effort is expensive. But animals alive through winter mean milk, labor, survival beyond this season. You accept the smell. You accept the risk. Mid-morning brings a pale gray light through the doorway when it opens briefly. Someone steps out to check the weather, to see how the storm has settled. Cold air rushes in, sharp and immediate, and the fire flutters in response. You feel the temperature drop across your skin like a slap. The door closes quickly, but the damage is done. Heat escapes easily. It always does. You feed the hearth a little more fuel to compensate, watching the pile shrink by a fraction that feels too large. The day outside is white and hostile. Snow has piled against the walls, sealing the lower gaps, but also pressing cold into the structure. Wind scours the open spaces. Paths are disappearing. The village feels smaller already, drawn inward by weather. You understand instinctively that travel is becoming dangerous. Distance has changed. What was once a short walk is now a risk.
You spend most of the day close to the hearth, not because you are lazy, but because movement wastes heat. Work is done in bursts. You mend a tear in wool with clumsy fingers, the needle hard to hold. You sharpen a tool slowly, careful not to rush and slip. Every task is slower in winter. Cold demands it. Hunger stays with you like a dull ache. You eat sparingly. Food is warmth stored inside the body, and once eaten, it is gone. You choose meals that give the most heat for the least cost. Thick porridge if there is grain. Broth stretched thin. Fat if you are lucky enough to have it. You feel warmth spread briefly through your stomach after eating, then fade. The cold returns, always patient. As the day drags on, you become aware of how light itself is rationed now. The sun never climbs high, shadows never fully retreat. By mid-afternoon, it already feels like evening. You light no extra flame for light. Fire is for heat, not for seeing. You move by memory, by touch. Darkness is normal. Darkness is safer than wasting fuel. You notice how everyone unconsciously arranges themselves around the hearth. The weakest sit closest. Children are pulled inward. Those who can tolerate more cold take the outer positions, near walls, near drafts. No one announces this. It is understood. Survival has its own quiet order. By evening, the wind rises again. You hear it worrying at the roof, slipping fingers into the thatch. Snow rattles against the walls like thrown grain. You add fuel earlier than you planned, adjusting to the weather's demands. Planning is flexible now. The cold does not respect schedules. As night settles, the house closes in on itself. The doorway is sealed with a hanging of cloth to slow drafts. Gaps are stuffed again. Bodies gather closer. The fire is fed one last time before sleep, built up just enough that it might last several hours. You know it won't last all night. It never does. Someone will wake to tend it. If no one does, the cold will do the waking for you, harsh and immediate. You lie down among the others, pressed tight. Your back is against someone's chest. Your feet are tucked against another person's legs. Breath moves over your neck. The air smells of smoke and bodies and animals. You pull the wool over yourself and feel its familiar scratch. You welcome it. It means you are covered. As you settle, you listen to the sounds of the house. The fire crackles softly. The wind moans through the thatch. Timber shifts and complains. Somewhere, ice forms and cracks. These sounds become your world. You focus on them because focusing keeps fear contained. If you let your thoughts wander too far, they will go where you don't want them to go. You think about how fragile this balance is. One illness, one injury, one bad night of weather could tip it. Warmth is not a constant. It is an effort renewed every hour. You understand now that medieval warmth is not about comfort. It is about management, about knowing when to act and when to conserve, about turning a house, a fire,
a handful of people and a few animals, into a single heat-producing organism. As sleep pulls at you, shallow and uneasy, you feel the cold still probing for weakness. It presses at your face, your hands, your feet. It waits for the fire to weaken, for bodies to relax, for vigilance to fade. You know it will get worse before it gets better. Winter has only just begun to test you, and tomorrow the hearth will need you again. You wake to darkness that feels heavier than before. Not just the absence of light, but a weight pressing down on the room, thickened by smoke and cold, and the sound of wind that never stopped while you slept. You know it never stopped because your dreams were full of it. Wind tearing at the roof, wind pushing snow through cracks, wind howling like something alive and angry. You surface from sleep slowly, unsure at first whether you are awake or still trapped in that half-world where fear doesn't have edges. Your face is cold enough to sting. Your nose is wet. Condensation from breath has frozen and thawed against your skin over and over during the night, leaving it raw. You shift slightly and feel the ache in your joints, a deep, grinding soreness that sleep didn't ease. It never does in winter. Sleep only pauses the pain. It doesn't fix it. The fire is nearly gone. You can tell without looking. The room feels different when the hearth weakens. The cold spreads evenly instead of staying at the edges. The air loses what little softness it had. Every breath feels sharper. You pull your hands out from under the blanket and crawl forward, keeping low. Smoke still hangs above, but now it smells colder somehow, stale and bitter, the scent of something that has already given all it can. You find the hearth by memory. Your fingers brush ash, then stone, then a faint warmth that makes you stop. There are still coals, but only just. They are buried deep, like animals hiding underground. You coax them gently, breathing life into them a fraction at a time. You don't rush. Rushing wastes air, wastes heat, wastes the fragile chance you have left. As the fire responds, barely, you become aware of how quiet the room is. Too quiet. No birds outside, no distant voices, just wind and the soft sounds of people breathing, some shallow, some rough with coughs that scrape the throat. Night has held on longer than it should. You know this without measuring time. Your body knows. The darkness feels stretched. When faint light finally arrives, it does not come from the sun. It comes from snow. A dull gray glow seeps in through the doorway's cracks and the thin places in the walls. It reflects off the ground outside and fills the room with a flat, lifeless light that shows everything without softening it. Faces look gray. Skin looks tight and tired. Shadows are weak and directionless. You realize then that the day will be short, shorter than yesterday, shorter than feels fair. You step outside briefly, wrapped in wool and resolve, and the cold hits you hard enough to steal your breath. The world has changed overnight. Snow has filled every low place, piled against walls, swallowed paths. The village looks smaller, pressed down by white weight. Roofs sag slightly under the load. Smoke rises straight up in places where the wind pauses, then is torn sideways again without warning. You smell nothing but cold. Snow kills most other scents. It makes the world feel empty even when it isn't. Sound carries strangely too. The wind roars, then drops into silence that rings in your ears. You hear your own breathing too loud. You hear the crunch of snow underfoot like breaking bone. You do not stay out long. Exposure steals heat faster than you can afford. You return inside, sealing the door behind you, stuffing cloth back into the gaps. The brief opening has already let cold claw its way in. You feel it spreading along the floor, curling around ankles, finding bare skin. Inside, the rhythm of the day begins again, but altered. Time behaves differently now. It feels compressed. Tasks that once fit neatly into daylight must now be rushed or abandoned. You prioritize differently. Warmth first, food second, everything else negotiable. You notice how people cluster more tightly as the day goes on. The hearth becomes crowded. No one complains. Personal space is a luxury you cannot heat. Bodies lean together, shoulders touching, backs pressed close. The warmth is uneven, but it is shared. The cold outside sharpens as the light fades. The sun never truly appears. It slides along the edge of the world and then withdraws, leaving behind a deeper blue-gray than before. By mid-afternoon, the village is already surrendering to night. Torches are not lit. Oil is too valuable. Firelight stays low and central. Hunger gnaws more insistently now. The cold makes it louder. Your body burns through what little fuel you give it just to maintain itself. You eat again, sparingly, feeling the familiar calculation behind every mouthful. How many days? How many nights? How much cold still to come? As evening closes in, fear changes shape. During the day, it is practical, concern about fuel, about food, about roofs holding under snow. At night, it becomes quieter and heavier. It settles into the mind and waits.
You lie down earlier than you want to because there is nothing left to do that won't cost more heat than it's worth. The fire is fed carefully, built just enough to last into the night. You know it will not last until morning. Someone will wake. Maybe you, maybe not. The uncertainty sits with you as you settle into your place among the others. The darkness deepens. Outside, the wind resumes its assault, stronger now, dragging snow across the roof, probing for weaknesses. You hear the thatch whisper and hiss as snow works its way into it. Moisture follows. Cold follows moisture. You imagine ice forming where you can't see it, adding weight, pulling at the structure overhead. Inside, breathing slows. The room fills with the sound of sleep that is not restful. People shift, murmur, cough. A child whines briefly before being stilled by a hand. The fire crackles softly, each sound a reminder that it is still alive. You try to sleep, but your mind keeps circling the same thoughts. The days are getting shorter, the nights longer. Each night stretches like a test you didn't ask for. You think about how many hours of darkness remain, how many fires must be kept alive, how many mistakes winter will allow before it takes payment. You feel the cold creeping again as the fire weakens. It touches your feet first, then your hands. You curl tighter, press closer, tuck exposed skin away. This is how nights are endured. Not conquered, not mastered, just endured, one long hour after another. Sometime deep in the night, you wake again, unsure why. The fire is low. The room is colder. The wind has changed pitch, rising into a higher, more desperate howl. You understand then that winter is not just present, it is advancing. The days will continue to shrink, the light will continue to fail, and with every passing night, warmth will become harder to defend. You close your eyes again, knowing sleep will be shallow, knowing you will wake when the fire needs you, knowing that this rhythm, wake, tend, endure, is now your life. Night has claimed more ground. You wake to a sound that does not belong to the house. At first, you think it is part of the wind. Winter has taught you not to trust first impressions. But this sound has weight to it, a deep, rhythmic strain, followed by a sharp crack that snaps you fully awake. Your eyes open into darkness so complete it feels solid.
The fire has gone low again, and the cold is no longer creeping. It is present everywhere at once. Another crack, louder this time. The roof shifts. Not collapses, not yet, but settles in a way you have never heard before. The thatch above you exhales a dry, brittle sound as packed snow slides, then stops. The weight remains. You feel it in the air, in the way the house seems to hunch lower like an animal bracing itself. You sit up too fast. Cold slams into your chest and steals your breath. For a second, panic rises sharp and useless. You force it down. Panic burns heat. Heat is something you cannot spare. You crawl toward the hearth, heart pounding hard enough that you feel it in your throat. Your fingers dig into ash, frantic now despite your training. You find coals, barely alive, and feed them without ceremony. Straw, a sliver of wood you were saving. You regret it even as you do it, but regret doesn't warm anyone. The flame flares weakly, then steadies. Light crawls across the floor, revealing faces tense and awake. Others have heard it too. No one speaks. There is nothing to say that will make the roof lighter. The wind surges again, stronger than before. It slams into the side of the house with enough force to rattle the timbers. Snow scrapes across the thatch like claws. The sound of it fills the room, relentless, grinding. You imagine the roof pulling free, straw lifting, the night pouring in. You imagine the fire smothered in seconds. You imagine the cold rushing down like water. You push yourself to your feet, joints screaming, and move along the wall, pressing your hand against the clay-packed wattle. It vibrates faintly with each gust. You feel the cold radiating through it, a steady bleed. You shove more rags into a gap you missed before, packing them tight with numb fingers. Your hands shake, partly from cold, partly from fear. This is no longer just winter. This is a storm meant to break things.
When morning comes, if it can be called morning, it brings no relief. The darkness thins slightly, but the light that replaces it is sickly and dim, filtered through thick cloud and endless snow. The wind does not die. It changes direction, searching, testing. Snow is drifted high against the walls. In places it reaches the lower edge of the thatch, sealing some gaps while forcing cold into others. You step outside only because you must. Someone has to see the damage. The world looks buried, not softened, not quiet, buried. Fences have vanished, paths are erased. Snow has piled into smooth, deceptive slopes that hide ditches and stones beneath them. Roofs sag visibly now, heavy with wet weight. Smoke struggles to rise before being ripped sideways. You walk carefully, each step uncertain. The cold here is sharper than inside, stripped of even the faint mercy of trapped air. It burns your lungs. Your eyelashes clump with ice. Your face goes numb within moments. You see it then. Part of the roof line has shifted. Not fallen, but pulled low, the thatch compressed and darkened where snow melt has soaked in. If the weight increases, it will give. Not all at once, a slow collapse, section by section, dragging beams with it. You stand there, staring, calculating. You know what must be done. Snow has to be cleared, weight has to be removed. But clearing snow means exposure. It means climbing, lifting, working in wind that steals heat faster than you can generate it. You go back inside and gather what you need. No speeches, no debate. Bodies move because they have to. You wrap wool tighter around yourself. You bind cloth over your mouth and nose to warm the air before it hits your lungs. You take a tool and step back out into the storm. The work is brutal. Snow is heavier than it looks, soaked and packed by wind. You shovel with stiff arms, each movement slow and deliberate. Sweat breaks out almost immediately under your layers, a dangerous warmth that will turn on you the moment you stop. Wind tears heat from your back. Snow works its way down your collar, melts,
then freezes again. You clear what you can reach. You knock snow loose from the edges. You slide chunks down carefully, watching them fall and break apart below. You do not climb higher than you must. A slip would mean lying in the snow, struggling to rise with useless hands while cold seeps in unchecked. Your breath comes ragged, your chest burns, your fingers lose feeling despite gloves. You shake them violently, trying to force blood back in. You know the signs: white skin, waxen numbness. Frostbite does not announce itself loudly, it just arrives. When you finally stop, it is not because the job is done. It is because your body refuses to continue. You stumble back inside, sealing the door behind you, collapsing near the hearth. Heat hits you hard now, painful as needles. Your hands throb as sensation returns, deep and fierce. You grit your teeth and endure it. Pain means circulation. Pain means you still have those fingers. The storm does not ease. By midday it is worsened. Snow falls thicker, driven almost horizontal. The sound of it against the walls is constant. The light outside dims further, as if the sky itself is lowering. You realize then that this storm is not passing through, it is settling in. Fuel disappears faster now. The fire must be fed more often to fight the increased cold. Damp wood smokes heavily, filling the room with a thick, choking haze. Your eyes sting constantly. Your throat feels raw, scraped clean by smoke and dry air. Coughing becomes unavoidable. Hunger sharpens too. Cold demands more from your body than you can give it. You eat again, earlier than planned. Every bite carries guilt. Every swallow is followed by calculation. You feel the warmth briefly, then feel it drain away into the effort of staying alive. As afternoon fades, though it feels like it never truly arrived, you begin to understand the shape of the disaster. This is not a single night to endure. This is the kind of storm that rewrites plans. Paths will remain blocked. Fuel will be harder to reach. Weak roofs will fail. Weak bodies will struggle. Fear shifts again. It becomes specific.
You watch the weakest carefully now. The old, the sick, the very young. You see the way their breathing changes as the cold deepens. You see how they struggle to stay close to the hearth, how they shiver even when pressed against others. You know what prolonged cold does. You have seen it before in milder winters. This storm will be worse. Night arrives early, forced down by cloud and snow. Darkness feels total. The fire is built higher than usual at a cost you feel in your gut. You have no choice. Tonight will test the house again. As the wind howls, you listen for the sounds that matter. The roof groaning, timbers shifting, the fire popping dangerously as damp fuel fights to burn. Every unfamiliar noise spikes your heart. Sleep is impossible at first. You lie awake, tense, waiting for the moment when the structure fails. Hours pass like this. Cold presses in, the fire weakens. Someone wakes to tend it, then another. The cycle tightens. No one sinks into deep rest. Bodies grow heavier, slower. Sometime in the deep night, the storm reaches a new pitch. Wind screams higher and angrier than before. Snow is driven with such force that it hammers the walls. The roof shudders violently. Loose thatch tears free with a ripping sound, exposing darker gaps beneath. Cold surges in. You feel it immediately, a sudden vicious drop that steals breath and sends a ripple of shivers through the room. Someone cries out, a short, sharp sound quickly smothered. You are on your feet instantly, heart racing, moving toward the breach. Snow has blown in, dusting the floor near the wall. You shove rags, straw, anything you can find into the opening, packing it desperately as wind fights you. Your hands go numb again. You can't tell if you are gripping properly. You press your body against the wall to block the draft, becoming part of the structure. The cold bites through wool, through muscle, straight into bone. You grit your teeth and hold. Eventually, the wind shifts, the pressure eases slightly, the immediate threat passes, but the damage remains. The house is weaker now. Everyone knows it. When morning finally comes, it is pale and thin, barely enough to mark the passage of time. The storm still rages, but it has changed. Snow falls more slowly now, but the cold has deepened. Everything outside is locked in ice. The village feels sealed off from the world. You look at the fuel pile and see how much smaller it is. You look at the faces around you and see the toll already taken. This was not just a bad night. This was the moment winter showed its true strength, and you understand with sinking clarity that survival has just become much harder. You wake with hunger already inside you, sharp and demanding, as if it never slept. It gnaws before you move, before you think, before you even open your eyes. Your stomach feels hollow in a way that is no longer just emptiness, but pain, tight, sour, insistent. Cold feeds on that weakness. You know this now. You feel it immediately, the way the chill sinks deeper when there is nothing inside you to burn. The fire is alive, but barely. Its heat feels thinner than yesterday, as if it has less strength to give. Or maybe it's you who has less strength to take. You sit up slowly, every joint stiff, every muscle reluctant. Your body feels lighter, not in a good way. Something has already been used up. Morning is only a suggestion. The light outside is dim and colorless, reflecting off endless snow. The storm has passed, but it has left the world stripped and hostile. The air inside the house feels colder than it should, damp and heavy, stealing warmth even as you sit near the hearth. You pull wool tighter around you, but it does little. Clothing can only trap heat that exists. You are running low on that too. Food is measured again, more carefully than before. You watch as portions shrink. A thinner ladle of porridge, broth stretched with more water than substance. The smell teases your body before the first bite, and your mouth fills with saliva in a way that feels almost humiliating. You eat slowly, forcing yourself to pace it, knowing that eating too fast only makes the hunger roar back sooner. The warmth spreads briefly through your belly, a small mercy. You close your eyes and hold on to it, willing it to last. It doesn't. Within minutes, the cold presses back in, as if it has been waiting politely for you to finish. Your body begins to change in ways you can feel, but can't stop. Movements that were once automatic now require thought. Standing up takes effort. Bending down leaves you slightly dizzy. Your hands shake faintly even when they are warm. You feel weaker, not dramatically, but consistently. A slow drain. Work still needs to be done. It always does. Hunger does not excuse you from survival. You help where you can, but you notice how quickly exhaustion comes now. Clearing snow from a doorway leaves you breathing hard. Carrying a small bundle of fuel feels heavier than it should. Sweat breaks out under your clothes despite the cold, and you hate it. Sweat is dangerous. When you stop moving, it chills you fast, pulling heat out of your body with ruthless efficiency. You rest more often, leaning against walls, crouching near the hearth, pretending you are checking something when you are really just catching your breath. No one calls you out for it. Everyone understands. Hunger has leveled you all. As the day drags on, the cold seems sharper than ever. Not because the temperature has dropped, but because you have less defense against it. Your body no longer produces heat the way it did days ago. You shiver even when you are still. The shaking is subtle at first, then harder to control. You clamp your jaw shut to keep your teeth from chattering. You do not want to waste energy. The fire eats fuel faster now. The house is colder. The storm has packed snow tight against the walls, but it has also frozen the ground solid. Cold rises from the earth itself, seeping through the floor, climbing your legs no matter how close you sit to the hearth.
You feel it in your knees, your hips, your lower back, a deep, aching chill that never fully leaves. Hunger begins to do strange things to your mind. At first, it is just distraction. You find your thoughts drifting toward food without meaning to. You picture bread you ate months ago, crust thick and dark, crumb soft. You remember the smell of fat cooking, the sound it made. These thoughts intrude while you work, while you listen to the wind outside, while you stare into the fire. Later, the thoughts sharpen. You notice yourself watching others eat, counting bites, measuring portions with your eyes. You feel a flash of resentment when someone else's bowl looks fuller than yours, even if it isn't. The feeling surprises you, and you bury it quickly. This is not the time for division. But hunger does not care about fairness or shame. It just wants. By afternoon, weakness sets in more deeply. The cold feels heavier, as if gravity itself has increased. Your limbs ache constantly now. Your head feels thick, slow. When you stand too quickly, black spots flicker at the edges of your vision. You blink them away and pretend nothing happened. You notice the faces around you changing, cheeks hollowing, eyes sinking deeper, skin looking stretched and gray in the flat light. The weakest struggle most. The old man who survived the storm now sits slumped, barely responding, his breathing shallow. A child cries more often, a thin, exhausted sound that fades quickly. Crying takes energy too. Night approaches again, earlier than feels possible. The sun barely marked the day at all. Darkness comes sliding back like a familiar enemy. The fire is built carefully, but the fuel pile is visibly smaller now. Everyone sees it. No one comments. You eat again, though it feels like too much and not enough at the same time. Your stomach accepts the food eagerly, but your body does not seem satisfied. Hunger lingers sharp and unresolved. You lick the bowl clean without thinking, then realize what you've done, and feel a flush of something close to embarrassment. There is no reason for it. Everyone does the same. As you settle in for the night, hunger keeps you awake. Not with dramatic pain, but with constant awareness. Your stomach tightens and relaxes in slow waves. Each one pulls your attention back inward. You curl tighter, trying to conserve warmth, trying to ignore the empty feeling inside you. Sleep comes in fragments, short, shallow, uneasy. You dream of food. Not feasts, not abundance, just enough. A warm loaf in your hands, thick broth that coats your mouth, fat that sticks to your fingers. In the dream, the food is real enough that you can smell it, feel it, taste it. Your body reacts as if it is happening. Your mouth waters, your stomach tightens in anticipation. You wake with a jolt when the dream breaks, the disappointment sharp and immediate. The cold is there, unsoftened. Your mouth is dry. Your hunger feels worse than before. The fire is low again. You crawl forward to tend it, movements slow and heavy. Your hands feel clumsy. You fumble with the fuel, dropping a piece into the ash. The effort of retrieving it makes your arms tremble. You pause, breathing hard, resting your forehead briefly against your knee. You did not expect fire tending to feel like labor this hard. As the coals revive slightly, you notice how quiet the room is. Breathing is shallow. No one shifts much. Sleep has become something fragile, easily disturbed, but also heavy, as if bodies sink into it because they have no strength left to resist. Morning comes without promise. The light is duller than yesterday, the cold sharper, the hunger worse. You realize then that the storm was only the beginning. The real suffering is this, what comes after, the slow grind, the way hunger and cold work together, stripping strength day by day, the way survival stops being about dramatic moments and becomes about enduring weakness. Your thoughts feel slower now. You struggle to focus. Small decisions feel harder. You catch yourself staring into the fire for long stretches, lost in the movement of the flames. The glow is hypnotic. It promises warmth without delivering much of it. You begin to understand how people make mistakes in winter, not because they are foolish, because they are tired, because hunger dulls the mind, because cold steals attention, a missed step, a forgotten task, a fire left untended for too long. The day passes in a blur of effort and rest, effort and rest. You do less than yesterday. Everyone does. There is no energy to spare. The weakest are now watched constantly. Someone always sits near them, close enough to feel if they stop breathing, close enough to share heat. By evening, the hunger has settled into something deeper than pain. It feels like emptiness has weight. Your body feels hollowed out. Your hands look thinner. Veins stand out more clearly. You flex your fingers and feel how little strength there is in them. You eat again, carefully, deliberately, knowing it may not be enough, knowing it will never be enough until spring, if spring comes. As night closes in, fear changes again. It is no longer about storms or collapsing roofs. It is quieter now, more personal. It whispers about how long this can last, about how much your body can give before it has nothing left. You lie down, pressed against others, sharing what warmth remains. The fire burns low but steady. The wind outside has calmed, but the cold is deeper than ever. It feels settled, permanent. As sleep pulls at you, hunger stays awake. It hums underneath everything, a constant gnawing presence. The cold has found a partner now, and together they are patient. You stop trusting sleep. It isn't a decision you make all at once. It happens quietly, the way winter does everything, by repetition, by consequence. You wake too many times with your teeth chattering. You wake with your hands numb and useless. You wake with the fire nearly dead and the room colder than it should ever be with living people inside it. Eventually, your body learns that sleep is dangerous. You lie down anyway because you must. Staying awake all night would kill you faster. But you no longer fall into rest. You hover above it, half alert, drifting in and out of shallow darkness that never lets go completely. Your muscles never fully relax. Your mind never fully quiets. Even when your eyes are closed, part of you listens. You listen for the fire. You learn its sounds intimately. The soft crackle that means it's healthy. The faint ticking that means damp fuel is struggling. The silence that means danger. That last one snaps you awake instantly, now heart racing, breath sharp, even before you understand why you're awake. Your body reacts before thought. You are up and moving, crawling toward the hearth, hands already searching ash. The nights are long, longer than feels possible. Darkness stretches until it feels endless, pressing in from all sides. Without light to mark time, hours lose meaning. You wake, tend the fire, lie back down. You wake again, unsure if minutes or hours have passed. Each waking costs you energy. Each return to the cold bedding costs you warmth.
Your eyes burn constantly, gritty and sore from smoke and lack of real rest. When you blink, they ache. When you keep them open, they water. Headaches settle in behind your eyes and never quite leave. Your thoughts feel slow, like they have to push through thick mud to move. When you do sleep, your dreams are wrong. They come sharp and vivid, then break apart suddenly, dumping you back into the cold with a jolt. You dream of fire roaring too high, flames climbing the walls, smoke thick enough to choke you. You wake gasping, heart hammering, only to realize the fire is nearly out instead. a thin mockery of what you dreamed. Other times you dream of warmth so convincing that waking feels cruel. You dream of summer sun on your back, of dry ground, of sleeping alone without fear. In the dream, your body loosens, your breathing deepens, you almost feel safe. Waking from those dreams hurts more than the cold. The contrast is brutal. Your muscles clench hard as reality slams back into you. For a moment, panic flares, not because you're cold, but because you remember what it feels like not to be. Sleep steals heat. You feel it happening. You lie still under wool and bodies, and slowly, inexorably, the warmth drains away. Movement generates heat, but sleep stills you. Your breathing slows, your heart rate drops, your body becomes less capable of defending itself. Cold creeps in from the floor, from the walls, from the air itself. It pools in your feet, your hands, your face. You start waking with parts of you numb, toes first, fingers next. Sometimes your lips feel thick and unresponsive. You rub them, worried, trying to force blood back into them. The pain that follows is sharp and deep, but you welcome it. Pain means feeling. Feeling means survival. You begin sleeping in strange positions without meaning to, curled tighter than feels comfortable, knees pulled up, arms wrapped around your chest. Sometimes you wake with cramps from holding yourself too rigidly for too long. You shift, but shifting exposes skin to cold air, and that hurts too. Someone near you snores faintly, irregularly. Someone else coughs in their sleep, a wet, scraping sound that makes you tense. You listen too closely now. Every sound feels important. You worry about breathing slowing too much, about coughing stopping suddenly, about the silence that would follow. You start counting breaths sometimes, not just your own. The old man's chest rises, falls, rises again. You wait for the next one before letting yourself close your eyes. The child's breathing is shallow and quick. You tuck them closer, press more of your body against theirs, even though you have little warmth left to give. Sleep deprivation begins to blur the edges of things. You misjudge distances. You reach for objects and knock them over. You forget what you were doing mid-task. Fire tending becomes harder because your hands don't move the way you expect them to. Once you almost scatter the coals instead of feeding them, and the jolt of fear that follows leaves you shaking harder than the cold ever could. Your thoughts loop. Worries repeat themselves without resolution. You think about the fire going out. You think about the fuel pile shrinking. You think about whether morning will bring more cold or less. These thoughts don't lead anywhere. They just circle. At night, the darkness seems to press on your eyes even when they're closed. It feels heavy, oppressive. You find yourself opening your eyes just to confirm the room is still there, that the fire still glows, that the people around you are still breathing. The house sounds louder at night. Timber pops as it contracts in the cold. The thatch rustles. Snow shifts and slides. Each unfamiliar sound snaps your attention sharp. Your heart jumps. Your body prepares to move even when there is nothing you can do. You are so tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, a deeper exhaustion, layered and cumulative. Your limbs feel heavy even when you're lying still. Standing up feels like lifting weight you no longer have the strength for. Your head feels full, but not with clear thoughts, more like pressure. During the day, you catch yourself drifting, staring at the fire too long, losing track of conversations. You blink and realize minutes have passed without you noticing. It scares you because drifting means vulnerability. Drifting means you might miss something important. You start fighting sleep even when you need it. You sit upright near the hearth longer than necessary, afraid that lying down will let the cold take too much from you. You rub your hands together constantly, even when they're already warm, just to feel something. You shift positions often, restless, unable to settle. When you do lie down, your mind stays alert even as your body sinks. You exist in an uncomfortable middle state, aware of everything, rested by nothing. You dream while awake. You hear things that might not be there. Once, you are certain you hear footsteps outside the house. Slow, deliberate steps crunching snow. Your heart races. You hold your breath and listen. Nothing follows. You tell yourself it was the wind, snow shifting, your own fear filling in gaps, but the certainty lingers, uneasy. Another time you think you smell food, real food, not the thin porridge or watery broth, but something rich, fat, meat. The scent is so clear it makes your mouth water. You sit up, confused, searching the room. Of course, there is nothing. The smell fades, leaving hunger sharper than before. The lack of proper sleep makes the cold feel worse. Everything feels worse. Your tolerance shrinks. Small discomforts feel unbearable. The itch of wool against skin drives you mad. The constant smoke makes your eyes ache until you want to scream. You snap internally at things that don't matter. Then you feel guilty for it, which costs more energy. You notice others struggling too. Tempers shorten. People move more slowly. Mistakes happen more often. Someone forgets to secure a hanging cloth and a draft cuts through the room for hours before anyone notices. Someone drops a piece of fuel into the fire too carelessly, sending sparks up into the thatch. Panic flares instantly until the sparks die harmlessly. Everyone breathes again, shaken. At night, fear and exhaustion mix into something dangerous. You wake from a half-dream convinced the fire has gone out, even though it hasn't. You scramble forward anyway, heart pounding, only to realize you imagined it. The effort leaves you dizzy. You sit there for a long moment, breathing hard, embarrassed and afraid. You begin to dread nightfall. Daytime, even cold and hungry, offers structure, tasks, light however weak. Night strips all of that away. Night is just endurance, long hours of holding warmth together with failing strength. You measure nights now, not by sleep, but by survival. You count how many times the fire is tended, how many times you wake, how long until the faintest gray returns to the sky. Sometimes you wish for morning so badly it hurts. Other times you fear it, knowing it will bring another day of hunger and effort without rest. Your body starts betraying you in small ways. Your hands shake more often. Your legs feel unsteady when you stand. You trip over nothing. Once you nearly fall into the hearth and jerk back just in time, heart racing, skin prickling with the thought of how close you came. You realize how easy it would be to make a fatal mistake now. One moment of inattention, one deep sleep at the wrong time, one missed cue from the fire. Sleep becomes something you negotiate with, not something you trust. You let yourself have it in small doses, a few minutes here, a short stretch there, always ready to wake, always half listening. Your dreams become fragmented, nonsensical. Images blur together, fire and snow, hunger and warmth, voices without words. You wake one night with tears on your face and no memory of why. The emotion lingers, heavy and sour, but the reason is gone. You wipe your face and feel embarrassed, even though no one is watching. The cold deepens as the days pass, but it is the lack of rest that truly wears you down. You feel hollowed out, scraped thin. You begin to understand how people fail in winter not all at once, but gradually. They don't freeze suddenly. They fade. As another night closes in, you lie down again, pressed close to others, wrapped in wool that smells of smoke and sweat and fear. The fire glows low. The wind murmurs outside. Your body aches everywhere. You close your eyes knowing you will wake again, knowing sleep will not protect you, knowing that rest, like warmth, must now be rationed. You begin to doubt your own senses. It starts quietly, the way everything dangerous does in winter. A moment where something feels off, but not enough to name. You wake from a shallow sleep, convinced the fire has flared too high, that sparks are climbing the thatch. Your heart races. You sit bolt upright and see nothing but the same weak glow, the same low embers. The danger dissolves, but the feeling doesn't. It lingers, sour and uneasy, like smoke caught in your throat. The cold and hunger have thinned you. Sleep has hollowed you out. Your mind is no longer steady ground. During the day, as you sit near the hearth, you catch movement at the edge of your vision, a flicker near the wall, a shadow that shifts when nothing should be casting it.
Each time you turn your head, there is nothing there. Just smoke curling lazily upward, just dark beams and clay walls and hanging cloth. You tell yourself it's the firelight. Firelight lies, everyone knows that. It stretches shadows, makes them dance, gives life to still things. But knowing that doesn't stop your pulse from jumping every time it happens. Your thoughts feel loose now, unanchored. They drift without permission. You find yourself staring at the flames, watching them fold and collapse, and suddenly minutes have passed. You don't remember thinking anything at all. The realization unsettles you more than the cold. Hunger sharpens everything and dulls it at the same time. Your stomach aches constantly, a low, grinding pain that never quite fades. Your body feels distant, like something you inhabit rather than control. When you move, there's a delay, as if your limbs need time to understand the command. The cold inside your head feels different from the cold on your skin. It's heavier. It slows you down. At night, the hallucinations grow stronger. You lie awake, or think you do, and hear voices near the hearth, low murmurs just at the edge of understanding. You strain to listen, convinced someone is whispering. You catch fragments of sound, shapes of words that vanish when you focus on them. When you sit up to look, everyone is still, breathing, sleeping. You lie back down, heart pounding, telling yourself it's nothing, telling yourself exhaustion does this, but you don't fully believe it. Another night, you wake certain that someone is standing over you. You feel it as surely as you feel the cold. The sense of presence is overwhelming, heavy and close. You open your eyes and stare into darkness, every muscle locked tight. Nothing moves. You wait, barely breathing, until the feeling slowly drains away, leaving you shaken and damp with sweat that chills you almost immediately. You curl tighter, teeth clenched, angry at yourself for fear you can't explain. The fire plays tricks too. In its low light, shapes form in the ash, faces, hollow-eyed and watching. You know better than to stare too long, but sometimes you can't help it. The shapes seem to sharpen the longer you look, as if your mind is filling in details that aren't there. You blink hard. The faces dissolve back into glowing coals and gray powder. Your heart keeps racing anyway. During the day, the village feels wrong. The snow has flattened everything, erased landmarks. Houses look unfamiliar, hunched shapes under white weight. Distances feel distorted. You step outside and the world feels farther away than it should be, as if space itself has stretched. Sound carries oddly. Sometimes you hear nothing at all, just a dead, pressing silence. Other times, the wind carries noises that don't make sense, creaks, groans, a low moan that might be timber shifting or might be something else. You stay close to the house whenever possible. The open space unsettles you. The white glare hurts your eyes. You feel exposed, small against the endless cold. Your mind starts playing tricks with memory. You are certain you fed the fire an hour ago. Then you look and realize the coals are dangerously low. You can't remember the last time you added fuel. Panic flares. Did you forget? Did time slip away again? You tend the hearth quickly, hands shaking, heart pounding at the thought of how close you came to disaster. You begin checking yourself constantly, recounting actions in your head, touching objects to reassure yourself they're real. You hate the doubt creeping in, the sense that your own mind is no longer a reliable ally. Others are changing too. You see it in their eyes, the way they stare too long into nothing, the way they flinch at small sounds, the way conversations trail off mid-thought because someone forgot what they were saying. No one mentions it. Naming it would make it real. The old man mutters sometimes now, words slurring together without meaning. He stares at the fire with an intensity that makes you uncomfortable, as if he sees something there you don't. When you try to catch his eye, he looks through you instead. A child cries out one night, screaming about something in the dark. It takes time to calm them. They cling desperately, shaking, unable to explain what they frighten them. You hold them close, feeling their small body tremble, wondering what they saw or what their exhausted mind created.
Story number 6. How medieval peasants kept warm without electricity. Your own dreams bleed into waking more often now. You wake convinced you are somewhere else, somewhere warmer, somewhere safer. The confusion lasts only seconds, but those seconds are terrifying. When reality snaps back into place, it feels harsh and cruel. The disappointment hits hard, leaving you raw and angry. Sometimes you catch yourself talking under your breath, narrating your actions quietly as you do them. You don't remember when you started. The sound of your own voice reassures you. It anchors you. When you realize what you're doing, you stop, embarrassed, even though no one is listening. The nights stretch longer still. Darkness feels endless. You count fire tendings, breaths, heartbeats, anything to mark time, but numbers slip away from you. You lose track. You start over again and again. Once, deep in the night, you are certain you hear footsteps outside the house. Not wind, not snow sliding. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, crunching. Your body goes rigid. Fear floods you so suddenly it makes you dizzy. You listen, straining so hard it hurts. The sound comes again, closer this time, then stops. You wait for what feels like hours. Nothing follows. Eventually, the fear ebbs, leaving exhaustion behind. In the morning, you see no tracks, just smooth snow, unbroken. You tell yourself the wind erased them. You tell yourself you imagined it. Neither explanation comforts you. Hunger worsens the hallucinations. Your body craves energy so badly that your mind starts inventing it. You smell food that isn't there, rich smells that make your stomach twist painfully. You taste fat on your tongue when there is nothing in your mouth. You dream of eating and wake with your jaw aching from chewing nothing. Once you catch yourself staring at the animals with a strange intensity. Not fear, not affection, calculation. The thought unsettles you enough that you look away immediately. You don't want to know where that path leads. The cold amplifies everything. It sharpens fear. It dulls reason. It creeps into your thoughts and slows them, makes them brittle. You struggle to think clearly when you need to most. Fire becomes almost hypnotic. You find yourself drawn to it, watching it longer than you should. The movement, the warmth, the promise. For a moment, when you stare deep enough, it feels like the fire understands you, like it's offering something more than heat. You jerk yourself back from the thought, heart pounding. You know better. You know this is what exhaustion does. This is what hunger does. It makes comfort feel seductive. It makes danger feel inviting. You start questioning your own reactions. Was that sound real? Did the roof actually shift, or did you imagine it? Did someone just move, or was it the firelight again? The uncertainty wears you down more than fear ever could. You don't know what to trust anymore. During the day, you force yourself to stay busy. Movement helps. Tasks anchor you in reality. You repeat simple actions over and over, packing clay, stirring broth, breaking fuel into smaller pieces, because repetition steadies your mind. When you stop, the thoughts creep back in. The cold does not ease. The food does not increase. Sleep does not deepen. You begin to understand that this stage of winter is not about strength, it is about coherence, about keeping your thoughts aligned long enough to avoid mistakes, about recognizing when your own mind is lying to you. At night, as you lie down again, you feel a creeping dread that has nothing to do with weather or hunger. It is the fear of losing yourself, of becoming someone who sees things that aren't there, of failing not because your body gave out, but because your mind slipped. You close your eyes, listening to the fire, to breathing,
to the wind. You repeat familiar sensations in your head. The feel of wool, the smell of smoke, the ache in your joints. Anything solid, anything real. The darkness presses in. Shadows move. You tell yourself they aren't real. You hope that's enough. You wake to the wrong kind of stillness. It takes a moment to understand why it feels wrong. The fire is there. The cold is there. The hunger is there. All the usual enemies are present. But something is missing. A sound. A rhythm you have been unconsciously tracking for days. Breathing. Not everyone's, just one set. You lie still, listening harder than you want to, counting without meaning to. The old man in the corner does not shift. His chest does not rise. You wait for the familiar wet cough, the restless movement, the faint muttering that used to leak from him even in sleep. Nothing comes. Your stomach tightens, but not from hunger this time, with dread. You sit up slowly as if sudden movement might change what you already know. Cold bites into you immediately, but you barely notice. You crawl closer, heart pounding so hard it makes you lightheaded. You place your hand near his face, careful, almost reverent. There is no breath. His skin feels wrong, not frozen, just slack, empty. The heat that once lingered, however faint, is gone. The firelight shows his face in harsh detail, mouth slightly open, eyes half-lidded, expression smoothed into something neutral and distant. You pull your hand back quickly as if burned. Death has happened quietly, without drama, no struggle, no cry, just a body that stopped producing heat in a world where heat is everything. The room stirs as others sense the change. Someone notices the stillness. Someone else notices your posture, the way you're kneeling, the way you haven't spoken. Awareness spreads slowly, reluctantly, like cold through a house. No one rushes forward. There is nowhere to rush to. Eventually, someone checks too, confirms what you already know. A few people avert their eyes. A few stare too long. No one wails. Grief costs energy. Shock keeps things contained. The body stays where it is. There is no ground soft enough to dig. The snow outside is deep and hard-packed. The earth beneath it is frozen solid. Moving him outside would mean exposure. Digging would mean exhaustion, frostbite, maybe more deaths. You understand this without discussion. So does everyone else. The dead remain among the living. This is when the cold changes shape. The old man's absence is immediate and physical. He had been weak, but he was still a body, still a source of warmth, however small. Now there is a gap. Cold slides into it eagerly, filling the space he left behind. You feel it almost at once. The fire does not burn higher in respect. It burns as it always does, low, struggling, indifferent. You feed it anyway, hands trembling, thoughts scattered. The smell in the room changes subtly. Not rot, not yet. Just the faint, sour note of a body cooling in a damp, smoky space. You try not to think about it. Hunger does not pause for death. Your stomach growls even as you sit near the body. The sound feels obscene. You press your arm against your abdomen as if that might silence it. Shame flickers through you, sharp and fleeting. Then hunger reasserts itself, stronger than shame. The day passes under a heavier weight than before. No one moves the body. It is wrapped more tightly, partly out of respect, partly to slow what comes next. You avoid looking at it directly, but you are always aware where it is. Your movements unconsciously arc around that corner of the room. Cold presses harder now. The fire seems smaller. The house feels more crowded and more empty at the same time. As evening approaches, something shifts in the group. The calculations become unavoidable. You see people looking at the fuel pile, then at the wrapped body, then away again. You see the way eyes linger on the animals longer than before, the way glances pass between people and then drop quickly when caught. No one says anything. Words would make it real. Night falls. The fire is fed carefully, but the wood seems to vanish faster than ever. The wind outside has eased, but the cold has deepened, settling in like a permanent presence. The house feels colder, despite all your efforts. Or maybe you feel colder. It's hard to tell anymore. Sleep is impossible. You lie there pressed against others, aware of every inch of your body, every ache, every hollow space inside you. Your mind keeps drifting back to the body in the corner, to the fact that it does not need food, that it does not need warmth, that it is, in a way, done. The thought scares you enough to snap you fully awake. Sometime in the night, someone begins to cry, quietly, a muffled sound, choked and exhausted. It doesn't last long. It turns into shallow breathing and then silence again. You do not look to see who it was. You know better than to seek more pain. Morning comes pale and reluctant. The light reveals what the dark softened. The room looks smaller. The air feels heavier. The body is still there, unmistakable now in the gray light. Someone has turned his face away, but you can still see the outline beneath the coverings.
The child who cried so much before now barely makes a sound. Their eyes seem too large for their face. Their skin looks pale and thin. They shiver constantly, even when held close. Their breathing is fast and shallow, like a trapped animal. You share what warmth you can, but you feel how little you have left to give. Hunger warps thought further. You begin to think about death in practical terms, not emotionally, logistically. A dead body does not need food. A dead body does not compete for heat. A dead body changes the math. The realization horrifies you when it fully forms, but it does not leave. It sits there, heavy and unwanted, alongside the smell and the cold and the gnawing emptiness in your stomach. Another person collapses in the afternoon, not dead, not yet, just crumbling suddenly while standing near the hearth. Their legs give out without warning. They hit the floor hard, breath knocked from them. Panic flares briefly as people scramble to help, but the panic fades quickly into grim efficiency. They are lifted, moved closer to the fire, wrapped tighter. Water is offered, a thin broth if there is any left. Their eyes flutter. They mumble incoherently. Fever burns in their skin, hot and dry, a cruel contrast to the cold air around them. You know this pattern too. Fever in winter is dangerous. It drives sweat, and sweat steals heat. It confuses the mind. It weakens the body further. You have seen people recover. You have seen more not. Night approaches again, heavy and unwelcome. Two bodies now require attention, one still breathing, one not. The room feels crowded beyond capacity. The fire is fed again, higher than you can afford, because fear has overridden calculation. The light flickers across faces drawn tight with exhaustion and something close to despair. As darkness settles, the child's breathing changes. It becomes slower, uneven. There are pauses that stretch just a little too long. You notice them immediately. You count without meaning to. 1, 2, 3, breath. You press closer, sharing warmth, murmuring without words, rocking slightly. Your own body shakes with cold and effort. Your teeth chatter uncontrollably now. You clamp your jaw shut until it aches. The pauses grow longer. At some point, there is no next breath. The moment stretches, suspends itself. You wait, willing the chest to rise again. It doesn't. Someone else notices. A hand reaches out, checks, pulls back slowly. No one cries this time. There is a heaviness in the room that feels almost physical, pressing down on shoulders, on chests, on thoughts. 2 deaths in such a small space changes something fundamental.
It cracks whatever thin barrier of hope remained. The child's body is smaller, easier to wrap, easier to tuck close to the wall. The cold slides into the new gap immediately, greedy and efficient. You sit there, numb. Your mind feels distant, like it has retreated somewhere deeper to avoid breaking. Hunger fades briefly, replaced by something hollow and echoing. You stare at the fire and feel nothing but tired. Later, much later, you realize you are shaking harder than before. Not from cold alone, from shock, from grief that hasn't found a way out. Sleep, when it comes, is broken and ugly. You dream of bodies piled like fuel. You dream of fire that won't take. You dream of trying to scream and finding no sound left in you. You wake tangled in blankets, heart racing, skin slick with sweat that chills you immediately. Morning arrives again, thin and gray. 2 bodies, one barely alive, fewer resources, less warmth, less strength. This is the peak of suffering now. Not a storm, not a single disaster, but accumulation, loss stacked on loss until the weight becomes unbearable. You understand something with terrible clarity. Winter is no longer testing you. It is taking you apart, piece by piece, and it is not finished yet. It is not a clean decision. It does not arrive as a thought you can name. It is a pressure in your chest, a tightness behind the eyes, a sense that the way you have been surviving is no longer enough. The math has changed too much. 2 bodies lie cold, one breathes weakly. The fuel pile is wrong, too small, too thin, disappearing faster than your strength. Hunger has hollowed you out. Sleep has abandoned you. The house feels less like shelter and more like a container slowly losing heat. You understand, without saying it, that something must be sacrificed. The fire is low when you wake. It always is. You crawl toward it out of habit, your movements stiff and slow. Your hands feel clumsy, like they belong to someone else. You feed the coals, watching them catch weakly. The flame struggles, thin and blue at the edges. It gives off more smoke than heat. The room smells worse now. Damp wool, smoke, bodies, something faintly sweet and wrong beneath it all. You breathe through your mouth and try not to think about it. Your eyes drift, unwillingly, to the corner where the bodies are wrapped. You force yourself to look away. You have learned that staring too long lets spots form that you do not want to examine. The living gather closer to the hearth, instinctively as if pulled by gravity. Fewer bodies now, less shared warmth. The cold finds new paths through the gaps. It feels sharper, more aggressive, as if it senses weakness. You pull your wool tighter and realize it is doing almost nothing. That is when the decision sharpens. You look around the room, not at people, but at objects. The bench along the wall, cracked and warped from years of use. The old wooden chest that once held better things. The doorframe, scarred and dry. Tools hanging unused now because there is no strength left for their work. Furniture you once thought of as permanent, solid, necessary. They are all made of the same thing: fuel. The thought lands heavy and undeniable. You do not like it. Burning these things means admitting something final, that this winter has stripped you past recovery, that you are no longer preserving the future, only clawing toward morning. But the cold does not care what you like. Someone else reaches the same conclusion at the same time. You see it in the way they stare at the bench, in the way their eyes linger on the chest, measuring its thickness, its dryness. No one speaks, no one needs to. You move first. Your body feels strange as you stand, unsteady but determined. You take an axe, lighter than it should feel, heavier than you want it to, and bring it down on the bench. The sound is loud, shocking in the enclosed space, a sharp crack that makes everyone flinch. Wood splits. The smell hits immediately, dry, clean, almost pleasant compared to damp fuel. It smells like warmth, like possibility. Smoke curls differently when you feed the fire the first broken piece. The flame responds eagerly, flaring brighter, stronger. Real heat blooms across your face, your hands, your chest. It feels almost obscene. For the first time in days, the warmth is immediate and unmistakable. You gasp without meaning to. Others do too. Shoulders relax slightly. Shivering eases. The fire crackles with a sound you haven't heard in too long. Relief washes through you, hot and dangerous. You know this won't last. You know what you are burning cannot be replaced. But in this moment, the heat matters more than tomorrow. You break the bench down completely, then the chest. Boards splinter. Nails are pulled free with numb fingers. Each piece feeds the fire, and the room changes with every addition. Smoke thins as the flame burns cleaner. The light grows steadier. Shadows retreat. The house feels alive again, if only briefly. People press closer, drawn by instinct. The child, still breathing, still barely there, is brought nearer, wrapped tighter, their small body lifted toward the heat. You tell yourself that this warmth might make a difference, that it might make a difference. Hunger roars back with the heat. Your stomach twists painfully as your body senses opportunity. Warmth demands fuel from within, and there is so little left. You eat again, scraping the last of the pot, licking the spoon without shame. Everyone does the same. The warmth makes the hunger feel sharper, crueler. But the fire holds. For hours, it holds. The cold retreats from the center of the room, pushed back toward the walls. You feel your fingers properly for the first time in days. Sensation returns fully, painfully. Your joints ache as they loosen. You welcome the pain. Pain means blood. Blood means life. The decision cascades. More wood is sacrificed. A shelf, a door plank replaced hastily with cloth and straw. A tool handle broken and fed to the fire. Each piece bought with a silent agreement. This winter is no longer about preserving possessions. It is about preserving bodies. You work slowly, deliberately, breaking wood, feeding flame, managing drafts as best you can. The house groans as parts of it are dismantled, but it holds, barely. Everything feels temporary now. The fire becomes the center again, stronger than it has been since the storm. It demands constant attention, but it gives back enough heat to make that attention worthwhile. Your mind feels clearer with the warmth. Not sharp, not rested, but less fogged. Thoughts line up more easily. Fear recedes just enough to be managed. You begin to think beyond the next hour for the first time in days. You notice something else, too. The silence outside has changed. The wind has died down completely. The air feels still in a way that is not threatening. Snow no longer hammers the walls. The oppressive howl is gone, replaced by a deep, frozen quiet that presses in on the ears. You step toward the doorway and crack it open slightly. The cold rushes in, fierce but clean, fresh. It smells different than before, not damp, not heavy, just cold, bright cold. The sky is clear, painfully so, a hard blue stretching overhead. The snow glitters in the weak light, untouched. You squint, breathing deeply despite the burn in your lungs. This kind of cold is brutal, but it is honest. It means the storm has broken. You close the door quickly and seal it again, heart pounding with something that feels dangerously close to hope. Clear skies mean colder nights, but they also mean movement will be possible. Paths can be found, distances measured again.
You share this quietly, with a glance, a nod. Others notice too. The tension in the room shifts subtly, not easing, but changing direction. The child stirs later that day. Just a little, a faint movement, a weak sound. You are there when it happens, close enough to feel it. You lean in, watching carefully. Their eyes flutter open for a moment, unfocused. Their breathing steadies slightly with the warmth. It is not recovery, not yet, but it is something. You cling to that small sign with everything you have. Night falls again, but it is different now. The fire is strong enough to last longer between tendings. Sleep comes in longer stretches, not deep, not peaceful, but less frantic. You wake fewer times convinced of disaster. Your body feels marginally more capable of responding when you do wake. You dream less, or perhaps you just remember less. The bodies in the corner remain, wrapped and silent. The smell is managed now by cold and smoke. You do not look at them unless you must. You have compartmentalized grief the way you compartmentalize hunger and fear, by necessity. Morning comes bright and bitter. Clear sky, hard frost. The cold bites sharper than before, but the light is stronger. The world outside looks defined again. Edges return. Distance makes sense. You step outside briefly, bundled and careful. The snow is deep but stable. Tracks from yesterday remain visible. You can see further now, across fields, toward the line of trees, toward the road that once connected your village to others. It is still dangerous, you know that, but it is no longer impossible. Inside, the fire still burns, weaker now as the sacrificed wood runs low, but steady. You ration what remains, breaking pieces smaller, stretching them further. The decision has bought you time, not safety. Time. As the day wears on, you begin preparing for what comes next. Not rescue yet, not help, but movement, clearing a path, gathering what little remains, sharing strength where it is weakest. The cold has not loosened its grip. Hunger still gnaws. Death still sits nearby. But something has shifted. You have crossed a line. You have burned the past to survive the present. You have accepted loss as currency. You have made the kind of choices winter forces on those who live close enough to feel its teeth. As night approaches again, you sit near the fire, hands outstretched, eyes half closed. The warmth is thin, but real. For the first time since the storm, you do not feel like you are only reacting. You are enduring, and endurance in winter is a form of resistance. You wake to light that feels different, not warmer, not kinder, just clearer. It filters into the house in a way you haven't seen for days, sharp and pale, casting real shadows instead of the flat gray wash you've grown used to. The fire is low but alive, its embers glowing with a stubborn steadiness. Your body aches everywhere, but it feels like your own again, not something slipping away from you piece by piece. The cold outside is brutal. You know that before you open the door. Clear skies mean the night drained every bit of lingering warmth from the world. Frost coats everything in a thick white skin. Your breath comes out hard and fast, burning your chest. But the storm is gone. That matters more than comfort. You step outside carefully, the snow crunching loud beneath your feet. The sound is shocking after days of muffled wind and constant howl. It makes the world feel solid again, real. The village is still buried, still frozen, but it is no longer under attack. The silence is deep, almost respectful. You can see farther now. The edges of things are sharp. Roof lines, fence posts half buried in snow. The road, faint but visible, marked by subtle depressions beneath the frost. It is not clear, not passable without effort, but it exists. That alone feels like a gift. You turn your face toward the sky and squint. The sun is there, weak and low, but undeniable. It has not abandoned you. It simply retreated for a while. Inside, others stir as you return. The mood is different, too. Not lighter, but more focused. The frantic edge is gone. Fear has narrowed into something usable. You exchange looks, small nods. No one speaks about hope. Hope is dangerous. But the change is felt. You eat a small portion, smaller than yesterday. Hunger still claws at you, but it no longer feels infinite. You drink slowly, warming your hands around the vessel before taking a sip. You let the heat sink in. You are learning again how to stretch small comforts.
The fire is fed sparingly now. The sacrificed wood is nearly gone. What remains must last until you find more or find help. Every piece is weighed in the hand before it is placed. The flame responds reluctantly, but it responds. You begin clearing a path. Not all at once, not far, just enough to connect the house to the wider village again. You shovel slowly, resting often, working with others when you can. The snow is deep and heavy, but it breaks cleanly now, no longer driven and compacted by wind. The work hurts, your back complains, your arms shake, your breath comes ragged, but movement warms you from the inside, and that warmth feels earned instead of stolen. As the path opens, you see signs of life in other houses, smoke rising, doors opening briefly, then closing again, shapes moving in the distance. You are not alone. You were never alone, but isolation made it feel that way. You exchange no words, just gestures, a raised hand, a nod. Survival does not require conversation. By midday, the light begins to fade again. The days are still short. Winter has not loosened its hold, but the fear that once filled every hour has retreated slightly, like an animal driven back by fire. You return inside to check on the child. They are still alive. Their breathing is steadier now, not strong, but consistent. Their skin feels less fever-hot. They stir when you adjust the coverings, a weak sound escaping their throat. It is not recovery, but it is continuation. In this season, continuation is victory. The bodies remain wrapped, unmoving. The cold has preserved them. The smell is contained by frost and smoke. You do not dwell on them. You will deal with that when the ground softens enough to allow it, if it ever does. Afternoon passes quietly, almost eerily so. You sit near the hearth, mending something small, hands clumsy but capable. The repetitive motion calms you. You focus on simple tasks, on things you can control. Sleep comes more easily now. Not deep, not long, but when you close your eyes, your mind does not immediately race. You wake fewer times in panic. When you do wake, it is from discomfort, not terror. That distinction matters. As evening settles, you step outside once more. The sky has already begun to darken, the sun slipping away behind distant trees. The cold intensifies rapidly. Frost creeps across the snow's surface, sealing your earlier work in a thin crust. Tomorrow, it will be harder again. But tonight, the sky is clear. Stars appear one by one, sharp and numerous, brighter than you remember them ever being. The cold makes them seem closer, like they're pressing down on the world. You stare up longer than you should, breath clouding the air, feeling small and strangely calm. Clear nights are dangerous. Temperatures will plummet. The fire will struggle. You know this, but clear nights also mean predictability. No sudden wind, no heavy snow, no collapse in the dark. Inside, the fire is built a little higher for the night. Not enough to waste fuel, but enough to keep the cold from biting too deeply while you sleep. You settle in among the others, sharing warmth where you can. The night passes without disaster. You wake to tend the fire once, then again closer to dawn. Each time the coals are still alive. Each time you manage to coax them back without panic. Your movements feel practiced again, familiar. When morning comes, it brings the same clear light as before. You realize then that the worst of the storm had ended. Not winter. Winter will drag on for months yet. Hunger will return. Cold will still test you. Death may still claim more. But the moment where everything could have ended, where the house could have failed, where the fire could have died, where you could have lost yourself to exhaustion and fear, has passed. You stand outside again, surveying the quiet village, the hard blue sky, the frozen world that has not yet killed you. You do not feel triumphant. You feel cautious,
worn, older than you were days ago. But you are still here, and that, for now, is enough. The long night has loosened its grip. Morning has returned. You step outside, and the cold feels different now. Not weaker, not kinder, just exposed. The snow no longer hides what happened. Under clear skies and hard light, the village looks stripped down to its bones. Drifts have settled into firm shapes. Roofs sag where weight still presses them. Walls show new cracks where clay has failed. Fences lean at angles you don't remember. The storm didn't just pass through, it left marks. You walk slowly, careful with each step. Your body is still fragile. Every movement reminds you how close you came to failing. Your legs feel thin, unreliable. Your hands ache constantly, joints stiff and swollen. Hunger hums beneath everything, quieter than before, but still there, waiting. The path you cleared yesterday has frozen solid overnight. Your footprints are locked in place, permanent for now. They make the effort feel real, proof that you moved, that you endured. As you pass other houses, you notice the same quiet activity everywhere. Doors opening briefly, smoke rising in thin, struggling lines, people moving with the same cautious economy you feel in your own body. No one lingers, no one wastes motion. Winter has taught you all the same lesson. Then you see the first body outside. Not from your house, from another. They lie near a doorway, wrapped poorly, half covered by snow that drifted over them during the storm. Someone must have tried to move them and failed, or decided not to try at all. The ground is too hard, the cold too unforgiving. You stop without meaning to. The body looks smaller than a living person, always does. Clothing hangs loose, limbs are stiff, positioned awkwardly where they fell. The face is turned away, but you don't need to see it to understand. You recognize the shape of loss now. You stand there longer than you should. The cold creeps up your legs, bites into your fingers. Still, you don't move. This is what remains when winter finishes arguing. You force yourself onward. Staring does nothing. Survival demands motion. Back at the house, the bodies inside wait. The smell has changed again, still muted by cold, but unmistakable now. You notice how everyone moves around them automatically, avoiding contact, adjusting paths. The room feels smaller with them there, not physically, but mentally. Every glance drags your thoughts back to what happened. The child's body feels impossibly light when you help lift it. Your hands hesitate before touching, as if you expect warmth. There is none. The contrast between memory and reality hits hard enough to make your chest tighten. You focus on the mechanics, wrapping tighter, adjusting cloth, sealing gaps. You do not let yourself think about the weight of that body when it was alive, about how it moved when it still could. The old man is heavier, not in flesh, but in presence. He had been there so long that the space he leaves behind feels wrong. Cold pools there even when the fire burns stronger. You keep glancing toward that corner without meaning to, expecting movement that will never come. You discuss burial without words. The ground will not allow it yet. Everyone knows this. You will wait. You will keep the bodies cold, preserved by the same winter that took them. When thaw comes, if it comes, you will do what needs to be done. The thought feels distant, unreal. Spring feels like a story someone told you once. The day moves slowly, too slowly. You try to resume tasks that once filled your hours, mending, cleaning, sorting what little remains, but your focus slips often. Your hands pause mid-motion. Your thoughts drift back to the nights when the fire nearly failed, to the sounds the house made under storm weight,
to the stillness of breathing that stopped. The memories come without warning, sharp and intrusive. A sound, a crack of wood, a sudden cough make your heart jump violently. You feel adrenaline surge, useless now, burning energy you can't afford. It takes long seconds to calm yourself again. You hate how reactive you've become, how thin your nerves feel. Sleep, though easier than before, is still not rest.
You wake from dreams tangled in images of fire and snow and bodies you can't quite see. Sometimes you wake convinced the room is full of smoke, choking on air that is actually clean. Sometimes you wake sure someone has called your name. No one has. When you do manage deeper sleep, you wake disoriented, unsure where you are. It takes a moment to recognize the walls, the hearth, the shapes of others breathing nearby. That moment of confusion frightens you more than the cold ever did. Your body survived. Your mind is still catching up. Food remains scarce. Hunger sharpens again now that the immediate crisis has passed. During the storm, fear dulled it. Now it returns, insistent and precise. Your stomach aches constantly. You feel hollow, stretched thin. Your clothes hang looser. Bones feel closer to the surface. You eat carefully, rationing not just portions but expectations. You no longer hope to feel full. You hope only to feel functional. Outside, more signs of loss appear as paths reopen. Another body near the well. Someone slumped against a wall, frozen where they fell. Each discovery lands heavier than the last. The storm is done, but its accounting has begun. You help when you can. You assist in moving bodies to sheltered places. You help cover them better, protect them from scavengers, from curiosity. Each time your hands feel less steady. The emotional distance you tried to maintain cracks. You begin to feel anger. Not loud anger, not directed, just a deep, simmering resentment toward the cold, toward the hunger, toward the way everything you built your life around proved so fragile. You think about the furniture you burned, the tools you broke, the future you consumed piece by piece to buy time. That future is gone now. Even if you survive the rest of winter, something has already been spent. The house feels altered. Not structurally, though that too, but in spirit. The walls seem closer. The hearth feels less comforting. The smoke smells sharper. You notice every flaw now, every crack that let cold in, every mistake you made when it mattered. You sit near the fire and feel restless. The warmth no longer soothes you the way it did during the storm. It reminds you how temporary comfort is, how dependent you are on constant vigilance. The child's absence is the hardest. There are moments when you still expect a sound that will never come, a shift, a breath, a thin cry. Each time the silence follows instead, it lands like a physical blow. You swallow hard and keep moving. You have learned how grief behaves in winter. It waits for stillness. You do not give it that. The weather remains clear and cold, brutally cold. Clear nights freeze everything solid. The fire must be fed carefully again. Fuel is harder to find now. You venture farther when you can, searching for anything that will burn. Fallen branches, broken fencing, debris uncovered by the storm. Each trip costs you energy you barely have. You return exhausted, hands numb, face burning, lungs aching. The fire rewards your effort with brief warmth. You stretch it as far as you can. Others do the same. The village limps forward collectively, wounded but moving. You exchange little words. Everyone is conserving something: energy, emotion, hope. As days pass, the losses settle into a grim pattern. No more sudden deaths, just the slow realization of who will not recover. The fevered person weakens further. Their eyes glaze, their responses slow. You sit with them when you can, sharing warmth, offering water they can barely swallow. When they die, it is quieter than before. No shock this time, just resignation. Another body added to the count, another space opened for the cold to fill. You help wrap them. Your hands move automatically now.
You know the motions. You hate that you know them so well. That night, you don't dream. You lie awake instead, staring into darkness, replaying moments you can't change. The fire pops softly. The wind murmurs outside. You feel empty, scraped clean. In the following days, the village organizes itself around loss. Responsibilities shift. Fewer hands mean more work for those left. You take on tasks that were not yours before. You do them badly at first, then better. Necessity teaches quickly. You feel older, not wiser, just heavier. Your body slowly regains a little strength, not much, enough to stand longer, enough to carry slightly heavier loads, enough to keep going. Hunger remains, but it dulls into a background ache instead of a sharp demand. The psychological wounds do not heal as easily. Loud noises still startle you. Sudden cold drafts still trigger panic. You check the fire too often, even when it's clearly burning well. You wake at night convinced something is wrong, only to find everything unchanged. You don't trust calm yet. One afternoon, you notice something strange. You are warm. Not deeply, not comfortably, but your hands are not numb. Your breath does not fog as thickly. The fire is modest, but effective. The house, patched and battered, holds heat just well enough. The realization hits you unexpectedly, and with it comes a surge of emotion so sharp it nearly drops you to your knees. You survived. Not cleanly, not without cost, but you are still breathing, still moving, still capable of noticing warmth. The thought does not bring joy. It brings a heavy, complicated relief mixed with guilt and exhaustion. You think about those who did not make it, about the child, about the old man, about the others outside, under snow.
Survival feels undeserved when you look too closely at it. That night, as you sit near the hearth, you find yourself staring at the flames again. But this time, they do not hypnotize you. They remind you of responsibility. Fire demands attention. Fire demands respect. It was a threshold. Crossing it changed you. You are quieter, more cautious, less willing to waste anything: fuel, food, energy, emotion. You move with intention. You speak only when needed. You feel a constant, low-level tension in your chest that never fully releases. This is the aftermath. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just the long shadow cast by days when everything nearly ended. As you lie down to sleep again, pressed among the living, wrapped in smoke-scented wool, you know the memories will stay. The cold will return. Hunger will test you again before winter loosens its grip. Even if you live through this season, part of you will remain here, in the dark, by a failing fire, listening for breath that never comes. Winter has marked you, and you will carry that mark long after the snow melts. Chapter 12. You wake long after the worst cold has passed, and it takes a moment to understand why the air feels different. It is still cold. Winter has not ended. Frost still grips the ground each morning, and the fire still demands careful tending. But the air no longer feels hostile in the same way. It does not press in on you with constant threat. It exists now instead of attacking. You notice this slowly, the way you notice everything now. Your body has changed. You feel it when you sit up, when you stand, when you walk across the room. You are lighter. Not healthier, just reduced. Your clothes hang differently. Your bones feel closer to the surface. Every movement carries a faint ache, a reminder of how much strength was spent and not yet replaced. You wake without panic now most mornings. The jolt of fear that once slammed into you at every sound has dulled, though it has not vanished. You still listen for the fire before anything else. You still count breaths in the dark without realizing you're doing it. Habits formed in crisis do not loosen easily. The house bears scars that will never fully disappear. Where furniture once stood, there are gaps. Bare earth shows where wood was sacrificed.
The walls are patched unevenly, clay cracked and repaired too many times. The roof sags slightly in places you now watch obsessively whenever snow falls again. You know every weakness. You have memorized them. The hearth remains the center, but you no longer trust it the way you once did. You know how close it came to failing. You know how little separates warmth from death. Every coal feels temporary. Every flame feels conditional.
Outside, the village moves again. Not quickly, not confidently, but it moves. Paths are kept open now, narrow channels cut through snow and ice. Smoke rises more regularly from more houses. People venture farther from their doors. Work resumes in fragments, repairing, scavenging, redistributing what little remains. You recognize who survived without being told. They move the same way you do, carefully, economically. They flinch at sudden noise. They pause often, scanning the sky, the wind, the ground. Their faces carry the same tightness around the eyes, the same exhaustion settled deep into muscle and bone. Those who did not survive are still present. Some remain wrapped and sheltered, waiting for ground soft enough to receive them. Others have been buried shallowly where the earth allowed it, marked with stones or broken wood. You pass these places often. You do not stop anymore. Stopping makes the weight too heavy. When the thaw finally begins, slow, miserable, incomplete, it feels wrong. The snow does not vanish cleanly. It rots. It collapses into gray slush that stinks of damp earth and decay. Water runs everywhere, soaking boots, seeping into walls, turning the ground into sucking mud. The cold remains, but now it is wet and biting, more uncomfortable in some ways than the dry freeze. The bodies are dealt with then. You help when needed. You dig where the earth finally allows it, each strike of the tool sending pain through your arms and shoulders. The work is slow. The ground resists. You breathe hard, sweat chilling against your skin. You do not look at faces anymore. You focus on the task, on depth, on placement, on covering. Rituals are stripped to their simplest form. There is no ceremony beyond what hands can manage, no words beyond what is necessary to coordinate movement. When it is done, you stand in silence for a moment longer than required, then turn away. Grief is something you carry now, not something you display. As days lengthen, warmth returns in increments so small they almost feel imagined. The sun climbs a little higher, shadows shorten. The fire is easier to maintain. Fuel stretches further. Hunger loosens slightly, though it never disappears. You begin to eat more without panic. Your body responds slowly. Weakness does not vanish overnight. Some days you feel almost normal. Other days, exhaustion hits without warning, leaving you dizzy and hollow. Recovery is uneven. You accept this. Fighting it costs too much. Sleep changes again. You sleep deeper now, but not peacefully. Dreams remain sharp, intrusive. Fire still features heavily. So does snow. So does the sound of breathing stopping. You wake some nights with your heart racing, convinced you are back in the worst of it. But you wake. That matters. The psychological wounds linger longer than the physical ones. You still check the hearth too often, still sit closer to the fire than necessary, still feel a twist of fear when the flame dips low, even briefly. When rain replaces snow, you flinch at the sound on the roof, memory filling in storms that are no longer there. You do not like being cold anymore. You once accepted it as part of life. Now it feels personal, an enemy that has shown you what it can do. You layer clothing earlier than others. You hoard dry things instinctively. You keep fuel closer than you need to. Others notice. They do not comment. Time passes. Spring arrives in pieces, not as a single moment. Buds appear reluctantly. The ground softens unevenly. The world smells alive again, muddy, green, raw. You breathe deeper without thinking about it. Your chest feels less tight. Life resumes, but it does not reset. You work again, but you work differently. You plan more, you prepare earlier, you waste nothing. When you store fuel, you store more than before. When you patch walls, you do it thicker. When you gather food, you think in longer timelines.
Winter taught you what happens when margins disappear. You find yourself watching children more closely now, watching elders with a mix of care and dread. You know how quickly strength can fade, how little warning there can be. Laughter returns to the village eventually, quiet at first, then more freely. When it happens near you, it feels strange, almost wrong. You allow it anyway. Life insists on continuing.
Sometimes you catch yourself staring into space, lost in memory. The smell of smoke will trigger it, or the sound of wind in the roof, or the sight of someone sleeping too still. Your body reacts before your mind does. Tension spikes, breath shortens. It takes conscious effort to remind yourself that you are safe. Safer, at least. You understand now that survival leaves scars even when it succeeds. Years later, long after that winter has passed into stories told quietly by fires, you will still feel it. Every cold season will carry echoes. The first hard frost will make your stomach tighten. The first storm will keep you awake longer than necessary. You will listen to the wind with more attention than others. You will never fully forget how cold hunger feels, how silence after breathing stops sounds, how fire looks when it is almost gone. You will teach what you learned, even if you never speak it outright. You will show others how to stack fuel properly, how to seal a house against drafts, how to sleep close without panic, how to ration without cruelty, how to recognize the signs of weakness before it becomes fatal. You will keep the fire alive with a reverence that borders on fear. And when someone asks how people lived through winters like that, how medieval peasants survived without electricity, without insulation, without modern comfort, you will not talk about ingenuity first. You will talk about closeness, about shared breath in the dark, about bodies pressed together because isolation kills faster than hunger, about burning the past to buy the present, about knowing when to endure and when to sacrifice. You will talk about the cost, because warmth was never just heat. It was vigilance. It was restraint. It was community held together by necessity. It was grief absorbed quietly so others could keep going. You survived that winter, but it did not leave you unchanged. Even on warm days, part of you will remember the cold forever.